Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Let's Look At with Zebu Nation, and today we have a few games to look at, starting with this game in front of you, Close Combat: The Bloody First. This is a real-time strategy game. It is part of the Close Combat franchise. If you are familiar with this franchise at all, you will probably understand what this game is all about. It is, basically company level combat. You really get in with the squad and the soldiers, and this is a franchise that's been around for a while. It's been around since the late 90s, and this particular franchise follows the 1st American Infantry Division, which is known as the Bloody First, or the Big Red One. And as you can see here, it follows them through their different campaigns in North Africa, Italy, and Normandy. So it is a World War II simulation game, a real-time strategy game. And basically what you do is you choose a scenario or you choose a campaign, and it kind of gives you brief overviews of what you need to do. In this particular mission, this is kind of the introductory mission. It tells you have to capture these 3 points, and you'll basically, each one of those is its own little mini mission within the campaign, and the campaign expands and it gets larger. And you've got quite a few missions with each of these campaigns, so it is a pretty good in that way. And then also, you pick your soldiers. As I mentioned, this is like a company level, so it's not like you're picking armies and battalions and all this kind of stuff, fleets. No, you're picking squads and platoons, like basically that level. So it really gets down and dirty at the squad level. And that's what makes this game different than a lot of other real-time strategy games, is that every single man in your company matters. If you got a sergeant who's got a lot of experience, he can lead guys and he can keep their morale up, and things like that are very important. It's in this game, the health, the welfare, the sort of mental fortitude of your soldiers, their experience level, their ammunition, all of that stuff is important, battle to battle, and mission to mission. It can add up. If all of your guys are getting wounded and broken and they're in despair and they're always losing and stuff like that, it's going to be hard for them to press on from battle to battle, and within each battle it's going to be very hard. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, if you win a lot and you have guys with very good experience and good morale, those are the guys that you can count on. When you need to send a unit up a hill to take a position, you can say, okay, I know these guys. That Sergeant Bill, he's got a lot of experience, he's with his squad, and those guys have been through hell and back and they never fail me. I can send them up the hill and they're going to do their job. So it's different than a lot of other real-time strategy games in that way, that these aren't nameless, faceless dudes. These are your GIs, the guys you've been fighting with since, Kasserine Pass. They've followed you all the way to Italy, and now you're going to take these guys and you're going to storm the beaches of Normandy. And it's very cool. Now, I mentioned this is, smaller level, but you do have some higher level assets like you see here on the screen here. You can call in mortar bombardments, artillery bombardments, even airstrikes. But those are limited resources. Those are resources that you can pull in from the company level, from the brigade level, and say, this is going to be a tough battle. We need some air support. So your company commander will grant you a little bit of air support. Like, here's a strafing run right here. Say, okay, we've got a couple of planes available. We can have them run a pass, but really that's all you're going to get. You're going to get like 1 or 2 passes. You're not going to get a dedicated air force. So it's an interesting game. It's one of those games that you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Like, if you like the idea of really detailed squad command and commanding, a few guys at a time to go take a hill, you're gonna love it. If you like the more grand strategy kind of stuff, maybe this isn't the game for you. And like I said, after each mission, you get one of these mission reports, and your experience will pass on from from mission to mission. So in that way, it does have a little bit of the strategy element, but there's not really any grand strategy element. You're not calling the shots. You're not a general overseeing the war. There's already a plan in place. There's a battle going on, and you're just a part of it. You just got to do your job and win your battle, and it's up to somebody at the higher echelon to actually decide where you go and who you fight. So if you like the real-time tactics, I call it tactics as opposed to strategy because that's really what it is. But if you like that sort of game, you might want to give this a try. If you played some of the previous versions, like I did, and you're just looking for an update of those old games, this is perfect. It's a good update. It's a solid update. It's everything you remember from the previous games. There aren't a lot of innovations here. There aren't a lot of improvements, but if you like the way Close Combat has always worked, it works pretty much the same right here. Okay, now for the second game, we're going to move on to something slightly different, though still in World War II, as you can see here. This is Order of Battle World War II. It's part of the Order of Battle franchise, and unlike Close Combat, where each game is its own individual thing, when it comes to Order of Battle, each game is more like a DLC kind of thing. So what you get when you buy one of these games is you get sort of an installer, and you can see here it's kind of like a hub world where you can install all the different DLCs, and you can either choose the European front or you can choose the Pacific front. You can buy all kinds of different DLCs, the German DLC, the Russian DLC. Here, the DLC I'm going to be talking about is the American and the Japanese Pacific War DLC. And this, unlike Close Combat, this isn't real-time strategy. This is turn-based strategy. To me, this is basically the spiritual successor to an old Nintendo game, I think it was either Nintendo or Super Nintendo, maybe both. It was called Pacific Theater of Operations. And you can see here's the hex-based, turn-based combat. It is just like that game at this level. Now, what this game doesn't have that PTO had is this game doesn't really have the grand strategy layer. Again, it's a little bit like Close Combat in that way that the missions are preset. Each campaign, which I put in air quotes, is basically just a series of smaller scenarios. And some things you do carry over from scenario to scenario. Basically, any troops that you purchase within a mission, those go into your reserves, and it's easier to bring those reserves out for your next mission. But really, that's all that carries over. There's no grand strategy where you say, I'm going to attack this place or that place, or I'm going to build new units, or you're not in charge of the war, you're just in charge of the battles. And that part is definitely, for me, it's definitely disappointing, because in the old game, in PTO, you were in control of the entire campaign. You could choose where you fought and who you fought and what you did and what fleets you sent and all that kind of stuff. But here, they just give you a scenario, they give you a number of units and a number of points to buy units, and they just say, okay, go win the scenario, and then you can move on to the next scenario. And what's even worse to me than that is that if you lose a scenario, your game is over. Even if you barely lose it, even if you've won every other scenario up to that point, you lose one scenario and you're done. And that's very, very disappointing to me, because it sort of breaks the immersion that you're in some kind of strategy game where you're moving along the course of the war, and you're winning battles and losing battles, and you have to fight and come back, and all the things you love in a strategy game is that things don't always work out. You do lose battles, but you get the ability to come back and change your strategy and adjust and adapt. In this, there's really no adjusting and adapting at the strategic layer. At the tactical layer, sure, there's lots of stuff you can do. There's lots of units. It's all, very good, very detailed units. You get the real ships and the real planes, and all of that stuff is very good. But again, on the strategy level, it's sort of is not what I'm looking for. Anyway, so that is this game. We're going to move on to the next game. Okay, next on the list is something completely different. This is, again, it is a turn-based game. It is a tactics game in a way, but it takes place in the far future. It's a roguelike turn-based tactics game called Crying Suns. It's got an interesting narrative, it's not exactly an RPG, but it does have some RPG elements. You've got full control of your strategy, so if you're more of a strategy fan, this is good for you. If you like science fiction, if you like interesting plots and interesting characters, this has some of that going on. But really what it is it's a tactics game that is composed of a series of mini games. And so what you do is you pick a ship and a crew and you fly off into the galaxy and you're investigating this mystery and you're going from planet to planet. And here, as you can see, we're choosing officers, we're choosing, places around solar systems to investigate. So you get to a solar system, you investigate all the different places, and sometimes you'll run into just character interactions, sometimes you'll run into little mini games that are like adventures, and sometimes you'll run into sort of a combat, which is more of a hex-based real-time strategy. So it has a lot of different elements. Now here you can see is the galactic map, and basically you move through these maps while there's a horde of enemies chasing behind you. So you have to keep moving forward and choosing your path very carefully to see which of these solar systems you want to investigate. You're not going to be able to investigate them all. You're only going to be able to investigate a few of them on your road to the sort of final boss of each level, of each solar system. Well, not solar system, each sector of space. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but we're going to show you here. You're going to transport to a system. So here's what you do. You warp into a new system, and you're confronted with some kind of thing, whether it's an encounter, whether it's some people asking for help, whether it's some people asking to trade or barter. There are stations where you can buy things. There are missions where you can take a crew and go down to the surface, sort of Star Trek style, where you choose an officer to lead your Marines down and you investigate things. And basically, you've got resources to manage, you've got your ship to manage and upgrade. It has that roguelike ability where you go in again and again. If you win, if you lose, you can go back and try again and try to get a better ship, try to get a more upgraded ship, better crew, all that kind of stuff. So if you want sort of a game that has an amalgam of everything, it's got strategy, it's got real-time tactics, it's got turn-based tactics, it's got mini games, it's got RPG elements. I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at this game, and it's got interesting dialogue if you wanna get into the characters and the mystery of things. Basically, you're a clone. That's sort of the roguelike element of it, where you're a clone and you can die and sort of get recloned and come back and try again, and you're trying to solve the mystery of what happened to this galactic empire that you used to serve. And I like the story. I like pretty much everything about this game, but there's the fact that it doesn't have one thing to sort of hook me in so far is kind of keeping me from recommending this to everyone. I think it's a game that you have to give it a chance. You have to go in and try all the different mechanics and see which ones you like, and try to just give it a chance is what I'm saying, and try to get into this game, get into the story, get into the mechanics, and once you do, then you'll find yourself coming back again and again. It's not a game that you play once and get all the way through. It's a game you have to keep trying and keep trying. And some people may not like that part of it. They may not like the roguelike aspect of it. They're looking for maybe more of just a straight up tactics game. So here's one of the missions. This is sort of it's not exactly turn-based, it's not exactly RTS, it's more of a mini-game. So you've scanned an anomaly on this planet that you want to investigate. You take a officer who's going to give you a good chance of success. You can see each of these officers have a different skills and abilities. That goes back to the RPG elements, and they're going to give you, different success parameters. And then, whoever you choose to lead this, they will then take a group of Marines down to the surface, and they're going to run through sort of a mini-game experience. And to me, this is my favorite part of the game. I like this mini-game the best. I'm not exactly sure why, because I don't exactly understand all of the mechanics, but I do know it has a lot to do with which officer you choose and what their skills are determine sort of how the little scenarios go. And you'll see the scenarios here in a minute once I actually choose which officer. I'm still sort of in this one, I'm still sort of deciding which of these I'm going to choose. Okay, I've made my choice, and now we're going to launch the expedition down to the planet. There you go. There's our little dropship or shuttlecraft or whatever it is, and you make a landing. And at this point, there's not a lot you can do. Once you send your troops down to the planet, they sort of follow the path, and they gather resources, and they run into danger. And you can see based on their skills and abilities, they can sort of, make it through unscathed, or they can get wounded, or they can even get killed. And there's not a lot of choice you have other than to continue or not to continue. You get to certain points where you can continue. There you can see a bunch of my soldiers getting wounded because we didn't have the right skills available. But yet we're still pressing on because I hit the continue button, and now we kind of have to go on to the end. There's one of our troops getting killed, a couple of them getting killed. So we ran into some fierce resistance here on the second half of this mission. The first half of the mission was cakewalk, so we're like, okay, let's just continue because nothing's going wrong. And then finally you reach the extraction point, and you get rewarded for it. So we lost a bunch of soldiers, but we gained a bunch of scrap. And scrap is what you use to upgrade your ship and all that kind of stuff. So that's that mini game. There are a few other different mini games. A lot of them have to do with talking to different people. There's stations you can go to buy equipment and buy new officers and replenish your supply of Marines and all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of things you can do in this game. Okay, now let's move on to a little bit later in the game. As you can see here, we're getting close to the end of our star system. We really only have one place left to go. And this is kind of the final boss, and I'm going to show you some of the combat and some of the other little scenarios. So we warp into the system, and we're confronted by sort of the main enemy of the game, the Scrappers, as they're known. And basically, we got no choice. We're going to have to fight these people and see if we can win this scenario and move on to the next level. I think there's basically 3 levels you have to beat to win a game in sort of roguelike fashion. Now here it is. It's hex-based. It's real-time strategy. Once you can pause and unpause the strategy, but it is real-time. So you basically have 3 elements to your ship. You have hull, you have weapons, and you have fighter craft and drones and things like that. Your launch base. So here you can see the other ship is launching their drones, and I've got to launch my fighters to go after them. And it's kind of hectic, this battle, this real-time strategy thing. I'm not very good at it. I keep losing ships and losing all the time in these battles, so it's something you got to really figure out. There's sort of a rock, paper, scissors aspect to it, especially when it comes to the different types of fighters and drones. And it's like drones are good against frigates, and frigates are good against fighters, and fighters are good against drones. It's that kind of rock, paper, scissors things. And then there are other things that can be thrown in there. There are other weapon systems, some that attack the enemy ship. Like there you can see I'm firing at the enemy ship, trying to take out their hull, which is how you win, basically. You take out the enemy's battleship, their mothership, and you win the scenario. You see, I'm shooting my weapons at it, but they've got a lot of shields, a lot of hull. And, you know, it takes a while to sort of figure out what exactly is going on. My ship's been upgraded, so I've got 2 different weapons, so I can fire 2 weapons at this guy. Usually when you start out, you just have 1 weapon. You assign crew to each position. Usually you start out with 2 crew, even though you've got 3 positions, so one of your positions will go unmanned, especially off the beginning. But each of your crew that you assign give different bonuses to your ship and to, you know, whatever they're manning. Sometimes they'll increase your rate of fire or increase your damage, or if you assign them to the hull, they'll decrease the amount of damage you take or increase your repair rate or something like that. And they'll do similar things for the fighters, give your fighters extra damage, give your fighters, you know, increased repair time or whatever it is. So your crew matters. What units you bring out on the field, what guns you bring to bear, you know, how good your ship is. Right now you can see their drones are taking, you know, just wiping out my hull right now. And I sort of lost track of this game and it got away from me. I thought I was winning, but no. It turns out they blew up my ship. Game over. And it ends just like that. You lose 1 battle and you're done. You're back to the beginning. But that's that roguelike element. So if you're interested in a game that has a lot of pieces, a lot of mechanics, a lot of things going on, if you like that roguelike element to it, give Crying Suns a try. It's a pretty cool game, and it's not World War II, which is what I've been playing just about 100%. So that's it for now. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.